I definitely feel like a feminist, and it really confuses me when people don't feel like a feminist.
Mm-hmm.
I can understand how people can have issues with how a movement has been run, like for instance, like in the past, being less inclusive maybe of LGBT people or of women of color or something, but to say you don't agree with the word or the ideal has always been confusing to me, because to me you create that on your own, and what it's always meant to me is just equality.
Hello, starseeds, and welcome to episode 5 of Musings from the Rainbow Sparkle Palace, the feminist podcast that circumvents social media bans so that women's voices are heard. I'm your hostess, Berea, Kentucky-based feminist folk punk musician, Rainbow Star. We have the magical Molly Smith with us today. She is the co-host of Little Sister Radio Show, a radio show on WBER, which is Berea College's radio station. I'm going to be real, it's been a hell of a day trying to get this podcast together and edited. It's always an enormous task, like way more than you would ever imagine. But today I tried to switch things over to a different device and it was hellacious. So I'm back to the 10-year-old Dell that weighs 50 pounds. Plus my Chromebook, which is really too old to update, and I have a new iPhone because my old one broke, and trying to reboot and reconnect the internet every fucking 10 minutes, so wish me luck. I had to take a nap today because I was so stressed out. I thought I was going to get sick. These are the things that we do for love, and these are definitely the things that we do in order to get women's voices out there, because I don't know if you've seen the t-shirts going around that say fuck the algorithms, but that's a reference to the fact that Facebook and YouTube and Twitter are censoring women's voices. And that's the entire reason for this podcast, because I could no longer run my fledgling music business as a solopreneur on Facebook. I spent thousands and thousands of dollars on courses, and I would say probably tens of thousands of hours easily over the last few years learning how to digitally market my music, mostly using Facebook and Facebook ads. And as you may have heard, when my feminist stuff started coming out at the beginning of this year and started getting more traction, Facebook started shutting it down more frequently. So anyway, all those little headaches and all the pain are necessary. At the end of the day, patriarchy is just fucking exhausting. So in this episode, you'll hear an interview that I had with Molly after we had gone swimming. This was done this summer as I was preparing to make the podcast, and we were sitting next to this beautiful body of water. It's like a secret swimming hole. I'm not going to tell you where it is. And it was just an absolutely gorgeous day. So you can hear like the creatures in the background and planes flying overhead as we sit on the shore by the water and talk about life. And there are themes of grief here and emotional intelligence and environmental stewardship and what Molly is doing to try to save the world. Okay, so maybe it's the fact that I'm super tired from all this techno shit today, but I wanted to share about the grief that I have experienced, just as a kind of appetizer to what Molly and I talk about here by the water. And my inner critics were telling me not to because it would be like selfish or look egoic somehow. And I'm just going to tell them to shut up, that everyone has grief of some kind, and that my sharing of my grief can potentially help someone else. So in the summer now, for the last few years, there is a week-long period that contains 3 really difficult anniversaries for me. One is my wedding anniversary, to my ex-husband. One is the due date of my baby that I lost in Christmas of 2014. The baby that I was going to have with my ex-husband. And right after that comes the anniversary of my divorce being final. So it's like a really fucking shitty, hard week in the summer. And the first time that anniversary came around, I gotta tell you, I had joined a program where I was being super productive and really working on going for my creative dreams rather than just telling myself that I couldn't do it. And as part of that program, I was meeting every morning with an action partner, and we would commit to several actions. I myself would commit to, I ended up counting, it was like 30 plus actions for the day, and I would do every one of them and then some. And that worked fine for several months, really. She and I were talking every morning. We would talk for 15 minutes. We had a really strict format. We would talk from 8:15 to 8:30 and hang up the phone and get to work. And when those anniversaries hit, I remember one morning just telling her, like, I can't do anything on my list today. Nothing. I can do nothing. I am, like, not even here. Like, I'm not present. I'm like, barely surviving right now. And I remember her saying, well, can't you just do the one thing? Can you just do one thing? And I was like, no. And in fact, I didn't talk to her for several months after that. There was a lot of perfectionism in it for me. Like, I felt like if I couldn't show up for her perfectly, I might as well not show up at all, which is a really damaging view. And another way to term perfectionism is high self-criticism. That's a more accurate representation of what's going on and more accurately outlines the damaging nature of it. So it might be a little dramatic to say catatonic for a week or so. That's dramatic. I did get up and I went to work and I came home and got back in bed. And I've struggled with depression ever since I was 12. But this was something quite different and a lot stronger, of course. And I can tell you that the rebel in me wants to talk about miscarriage also because it's a taboo subject. And I think that's extra shitty because it's a women's issue. And as a women's issue, it affects everyone. And as a women's issue in this patriarchal society, it's like, oh, don't talk about that. But that is really damaging because so many women go through it. The statistics that I read when I was going through it said that 1 in 5 recognized pregnancies, that means when you know that you're pregnant, end in miscarriage. It's just, my understanding is that it's complicated to recombine genes from a mother and a father to create a new little creature, and sometimes they don't match up. And my understanding is that if you are healthy and young enough, your body will recognize that those genes have matched up in a way that is not going to make a super healthy baby, and your body will reject the fetus. So, and beyond that, I'm sure there are several significant concrete reasons, but my understanding is that most of the time people have no idea why they end up having a miscarriage. It's just one of those shitty mysteries. And when I found out that I went to my first OBGYN appointment at 8 weeks to hear the baby's heartbeat, and there wasn't one, and he was a lot smaller than he was supposed to be. And they told me that they basically had no hope, but I was in such a state of shock and disbelief that I made them go ahead and draw my blood, and they were going to do another test 2 days from then to see if my hormone levels were dropping, and that was going to be the assured sign that the baby, I hadn't just miscalculated my period date, which I knew that I had not miscalculated it, but in fact that the baby had died and was basically, my body was reabsorbing him, and that's why he was so small. He was like shrinking. So that was super hard. I remember like making them print out the picture, those little pictures that everybody puts on Facebook. And it's so strange because this tiny little white creature that to me, in my imagination, I can almost see him like reaching out his arms. Which is really hard. So, beyond the emotional disappointment of the death of this dream, and I had very much felt a connection to my baby. There is the added difficulty of the fact that your hormones when you're in miscarriage are like dropping out of the sky. And so it makes you feel absolutely crazy. Like on top of the fact that you're dealing with this crazy event, you're so happy and excited. And then next thing you know, like that dream is dashed. That sudden drop in hormones makes you feel absolutely nuts. I described it as it felt like my head was going to start spinning off my neck. Like, what is that fucking movie? What is that movie? You know what I'm talking about. That scary movie. Jesus. Anyway. And the extra hard part was that around that, my ex-husband at the time was being an absolute fucking nightmare. God, I don't want to go into it, but there was just a lot of verbal abuse and manipulation, and it was really, really rough. It was just made it even worse. And, I remember going to the library, and there were no books in the library about miscarriage. There was one paragraph that was situated in the book called What to Expect When You're Expecting, which of course I had already read at that point, in just excited anticipation of having a child. And how devastating is that? There's only one fucking paragraph, and it's in this book that's like not for you. And I remember requesting that my library like remedy that. I don't know if they have or not. I haven't gone back to look, but the doctors that I dealt with at the time were also just, God, I remember having one good doctor. She was kind and respectful, and the rest were heinous. Like, I sat down to file a complaint with the hospital because I was encouraged to by a friend who was on the board, and he heard a little bit of my story, which was just it was so hard to talk about. And when I sat down to write it, I couldn't. I got a few paragraphs in and I just couldn't. It was just so painful. And to be treated like I was ignorant, like I was not human, to have my privacy disrespected in the middle of that absolutely excruciatingly painful nightmare. I went into labor and, was just like blinded by the pain, and ended up in the ER and had an overnight hospital stay when my body finally finished the process. I was offered a DNC, and I was really encouraged to do that by my doctor, but I did not want to do that. I was not ready to let go, So that fucking sucked. And honestly, it's not a subject that I talk about very much, but I know that there are a lot of women out there who have dealt with this. We all have different ways of experiencing it. For some women, it's super hard. For some women, it's not a big deal. For some women, it's physically really hard. And for some reason, for other women, it's physically not very difficult either, or as painful. So there's a wide range of experiences, all of them valid and worthy of being supported and listened to. So, now my heart hurts just from talking about it. And I'll be honest, like, I fully believe in the value of emotions, as Molly and I talk about a little in this interview. And I fully believe in the value of honoring emotions, but that shit is fucking hard. I kind of do what most of us do with painful, difficult things, is avoidance. I don't really know how to remedy that, because I don't. Anyway, hopefully this experience of talking about it just now will clear some things for me and maybe also help another woman who has gone through having a miscarriage, or help another woman if she runs into it at some point in her life. We did bury my son and name him as well. And he is up on the hill here at the Rainbow Sparkle Palace and has a little grave marker with his name on it, and I can go visit it, and there are crystals there and a little angel statue and an iris, a white iris that I planted there. And I can't remember the name of this plant, but it has the tiniest periwinkle blue flowers. They're so gorgeous. And when they fall off, they're just like confetti on the ground. So that's cool to have there. You know, there's always some beauty amid the pain. That's the dichotomy of life. Beautiful and painful, as Glennon Doyle calls it, brutiful. Brutal and beautiful. So, shit, that got really heavy, and I hope that you're still with me and not crying in a ball on the floor. But if you are crying in a ball on the floor, I hope that that's what you need. And anyway, as I record this today, it is December 1st, and I have heard it said that wintertime and grief and the divine feminine are intertwined. The dark, earthy soil and the dark things that we avoid are there waiting for us to embrace in the times of scant sunlight. So on that note, I would like to share with you a truncated excerpt from this book that I keep in my outhouse and read on the daily. It's a daily meditation and affirmation book called Pocketful of Miracles by Dr. Joan Borysenko. And I would say that it's like more spiritual, but they do talk about all different kinds of faiths and no faith and mysticism. So it appeals to me in that way. So the reading for today, December 1st, we are entering the season of darkness, during which we partake in the most ancient of miracles, giving birth to the light. We are ready to bear witness to the renewal of the world and the renewal of our souls. In this season of blessing, the ancient ones celebrated winter solstice as the turning point when darkness births light. Great Spirit, I give thanks today for the velvety darkness that covers the world like a blanket of mystery. With humility and a pure heart, I offer myself as a vessel for the rekindling of the divine light. May I be made new this December, bringing forth the light of compassion, peace, and wisdom more fully into this world. Without further ado, my interview with the magical Molly Smith. Hanging out with badass Molly Smith, co-host of Little Sister Radio Show, local badass.
I don't think I've ever been described as that before, really.
No?
No.
Why?
That's fun to hear.
You must hang out with a bunch of namrods.
No, I just don't hang out with a lot of people in general, probably.
Oh, that's good. I feel you. Same. So, yeah. Are there any events in your life that have shaped your views on life?
On life in general?
Yeah.
Oh, that's broad. Yeah, a lot. I think most recently I've just been dealing with grief a lot. And the last couple of years I've been moving through that and just kind of like collecting people who are going through the same thing, even though I probably would never pay attention to them otherwise, or even be actively frustrated by them. Like, especially if their dad has passed away. Like, Meghan McCain. I, like, kind of hate Watch the View sometimes, but also kind of love Barbara Walters' initial idea of, like, bringing lots of women together with different viewpoints to, like, chat on a show, because there had never been anything like that before. So I've always thought that was pretty cool. That was, like, my young childhood when that show started. But Meghan McCain is on it now, and she drives me nuts! Oh,
Really?
God. Yeah, she drives me bananas.
Who the hell is that? I don't know who that
John
is.
McCain's daughter?
Okay, nope. I have no idea.
Oh, well, she's on it now, and sometimes she can be really great, but there's a lot of times when she's so strange to watch on the television. But obviously her dad just passed away, and I just like kind of viewing how other people are handling it, and I just like keep collecting people like that.
Mm-hmm.
And just like observing them and commenting in my mind about the process, I think.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably the most recent thing, but loads of things.
Did you lose your dad?
Yes. 2 years ago.
I'm sorry.
Well, that's okay.
It's super hard.
It is hard. There's an enigma, really.
And how so?
Just a really hard guy to figure out. Really stoic. He would have very specific things and, like, values that he would repeat over and over, but he wouldn't go beyond, I think, what he had set out to, I think, specifically as children, like, show us. And so you would have to, like, pry, and really I would just ask my mom instead, and she would tell me everything I wanted to know. But, yeah, so it's fun to learn about someone, though, even after they're gone, I think.
I bet.
Yeah.
So you're asking your mom things about him now that you didn't learn while he was
Yeah,
alive?
and I did. Even while he was alive, I would just ask her instead of him because, I don't know, it would make me nervous, or I don't know.
He wasn't open.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I feel like so many guys are like that.
I think so, too. And I think we teach them to be that way, and that's a real disservice, I think, to half of the world's population.
Yeah.
Like, what the heck? I just think that that's, like, too feminine, or I don't know, it's just some sort of vulnerability that they'll lose their power if they, like, I don't know, release information.
Yeah.
I kind of can't figure it out.
That makes sense.
I have this argument with my brother a lot, though, about emotions. He's very, like, he always thinks, he says to me actively, actually, not even just thinks it, that, like, emotions, you don't need them. Just, like, get rid of them. Emotions are in the way of, like, efficiency. He wants his life to be extremely efficient. And I operate pretty much solely upon emotions. I think they are what curates logic. I don't think that you can think things without feeling things. And I'm like, you are not feeling anything. You're just not, you don't think there's any value in talking about that part of it, even though that's how you are forming your thoughts. It's like what you feel. Like what feels the most, like, I don't know, I can't describe it. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
I'm just aghast at I just fear so much for men who don't feel their feelings, and especially who, like, actively suppress them, because my thought immediately goes to men who perpetrate acts of violence. Not that I'm saying I think your brother's going to perpetrate acts of violence, but I think that is definitely at the root of these mass shootings that we're having, is that men are not taught to process their emotions. They're taught that they can't have emotions. and then they explode in an act of violence because that's the only way that we have accepted men to have feelings, as if they're angry and showing like dominance.
Yeah.
And it's really unhealthy. It's just super patriarchal. It's like the epitome of the patriarchal idea of emotions being feminine and efficiency being like the end all be all.
Yeah. And feminine and therefore weak.
Exactly.
Like we're
inferior.
Hysterical, we're too like flighty and flippy all the time, and that isn't powerful, which I think is the exact opposite. I think there's a lot of power to your feelings. I actually took a class on the history of emotions in college.
Which in Berea?
Mm-hmm,
at Berea, wow.
Berea.
Huh.
And so I have a lot of feelings.
What the hell? I never even heard of a class like that.
I hadn't either. My advisor taught it, Dr. Joshua Guthman.
I know him. He used to babysit his kiddo.
August?
Yeah, I love him.
Oh my god, he's so cute! Yes.
He's amazing.
So he taught it, and we read things like Uncle Tom, and we read articles on, like, Shirley Temple, and, like intense articles from psychological journals on, like, flight attendants from the 60s and how, like, damaging it might have been for an entire industry to force people to just, like, smile all the time, and
even though they were petrified that the plane was going down.
Yeah.
Because it was the 60s.
Yeah. So, I've always been fascinated in, and we kind of studied, obviously we came to no conclusions because we were 22-year-olds, and even the people we were reading hadn't come to these conclusions, but on deciding, like, if there's a difference, because people have always separated thoughts and feelings, and people always use the mind, like the actual physical brain, to describe thoughts, and then feelings, you know, people tend to describe, like, feeling it throughout your entire body.
Mm-hmm.
And so if there is an actual medical or scientific difference, and that's curious. What do you think?
I don't know.
Me either.
Curiouser and curiouser. What do you think about feminism? What does feminism mean to you? And do you feel like a feminist or do you not?
I definitely feel like a feminist, and it really confuses me when people don't feel like a feminist.
Mm-hmm.
I can understand how people can have issues with how a movement has been run. Like, for instance, like in the past, being less inclusive maybe of LGBT people or of, like, women of color or something.
Mm-hmm.
But to say you don't agree with the word or the ideal has always been confusing to me, because to me you create that on your own, and what it's always meant to me is just equality of all. And we were talking about this earlier with, like, education, and with people with public education,
mm-hmm.
and with people leaving the United States after having, like, Trump voted in. I've always thought that you look at the intent of something and look at what the ideal could look like, and rather than, if it's not working, totally abandoning it, why not stay and work for it? So, I certainly feel like a feminist. And I think I've just always felt that's enough, you know, like I will root for that. I will support people who do that. But more recently, as you know, I think I've been getting into it more, particularly because one of my best friends, Amy Harmon, started a radio show, Little Sister Radio, on WBER, the Berea College radio station. And, like, 3 episodes in or something, she travels a lot for work, and so she'll have to miss an episode. And she just posted on Facebook one night, like, I'll be gone next Tuesday, but if anyone has any recommendations, please let me know. And So the show highlights women musicians and artists in music, lady empowerment, and not even highlights, only plays them exclusively. And so I was like, oh, this is fun. It was just like a Friday night challenge to me, kind of. And I was like, yeah, I'll like send in. So I commented a list of like 15 or 20 like people. And she was like, you should come on the show. And I was like, hard pass, not going to happen. Like, I like to be behind the curtain, you know. But I came on the show, and then she thought it would be cute if we kept doing it because we both had a really good time. And it was really easy for us to talk to each other. And I was way less nervous. I get really nervous for things like that. Have, like, massive imposter syndrome in all walks of life.
Same.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the patriarchy, too. Just telling you you're constantly not good enough.
Yeah.
Yep.
I totally think that all the time. I think that's the way I've been affected most by it, to be honest. But it was easy and it was fun, and so I kind of became her co-host, and then I became her legitimate co-host, and we've been having local artists on, and it's been awesome, including Rainbow Star. So I've kind of felt a little more part of it, and I want to keep getting deeper and deeper, I think.
How do you plan on doing that?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Just supporting people. Like Allie with the Levitt amp, and you, and like buying local products, like supporting all of the really great local restaurants in Berea who are run by women. Yeah. I feel like I could easily get overwhelmed by something. I have a lot of anxiety, and so if I broaden it out too much, I'll just think, I'll never be able to solve all of the problems in the world. Why do anything? So I think I'll probably try to keep it close to home in terms of that.
So logical. Me, I'm like, I'm gonna put out a record and start a podcast and like canvas for Elizabeth Warren, and I'm like, what else can I add onto this plate? Oh my god. That's very smart, though.
Those are all, though, close to home. Those are still things that you are doing in your local surroundings that you can start up on your own. And if it takes off, then you can just let people join you, you know?
Yeah.
I don't think that's unreasonable.
Thanks, Molly.
You're welcome.
So how do you feel about Appalachia now that how many years have you been here now?
Well, I started school at Berea in 2011, so I don't know if that counts as living here.
I think it is.
Okay, so since 2011, because I stayed after I graduated in 2015. And I've worked for the college ever since.
Lucky you.
Yeah, I think I have a really great lens through which to view Appalachia with the college. I think I see all of the best parts.
For sure.
Because they like to highlight all of the best parts.
Yeah.
Which is really nice.
Yeah.
And then they like to just see the parts where people are struggling or places are struggling and use them as opportunities rather than being like, scourge the region. Everything sucks.
Oh my god. So, as a spokesperson for Appalachia then, because I know that's part of your job, and I'm Kentucky proud all day long.
Heck yeah!
What would you tell somebody who doesn't know anything about Appalachia and is like, all I've heard is y'all don't wear shoes, and you don't have cell phones, and y'all have horses?
Well, I would tell them that's, first of all, I would probably use comedy, because I usually do. I'd probably be a bit sarcastic or crass or something. But I would probably be like, that's a really strange thing to believe from different sources, and I would ask them to look more into it and tell them what I know about Appalachia, which is a lot of the issues in general, first of all, have come from like resource exploitation. Mm-hmm. People coming in here and making a lot of money off of really hardworking people and leaving them in devastation. And capitalism plays a lot into that. And, yeah, like I said, resource exploitation. So the environment plays into that. But this place, as I know it, is a place that holds a lot of pride in place. So they value their home in terms of the actual land on which we live, and the mountains play a huge part of that. They take pride in the natural landscape of it all, which is so beautiful. We are literally right among them right now, staring at the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains.
Yeah, they're amazing.
They're
majestic as fuck, aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah. And so anything that's come, like all harm that's come to this place, from what I've seen, has come from outside sources. Mm-hmm. And it's a people who live simply. It's a people who are incredible artists. I mean, music that people have never heard before, I think. And, like, amazing trades. My roommate's mom and dad, actually, but her mom had a quilt business. Beautiful quilt makers and painters and broom making and woodworking, and they produce their own food a lot of the time. And so I think that those people who say that type of stuff just need more education, in my opinion. And I think it's super weird that, I don't know, they watched like Diane Sawyer 2020 or whatever and just decided that that was all true. So,
what are your hopes for the future? Like, what are you working towards?
Oh my. That question makes me nervous. I don't really know. I've always really enjoyed being in the classroom, so I think at some point, one day, a goal of mine would be to go back to school just to learn more. I think I learned a lot from college, and I like a structured environment like that. Some people that doesn't work, and that totally makes sense to me, why it wouldn't, but for me, I think it does. Being forced to read stuff. I love reading, but I have, like, nothing has been diagnosed, but I just assume that I have some sort of ADD, because sometimes it takes me, like, an hour to read 10 pages, and I'll reread stuff over and over, and I really take it in that way. I feel like I really embody the works, but it can be very exhausting. So that structured environment is really good. I will just have to pick, something that I'm really passionate about learning, I think. Because history was a really good place to start, and it might be where I continue. Because you could cast a broad net, I think, with just a subject like that.
Yeah.
And take that work somewhere else. But I don't know. I think I like to be a supporting character in people's lives. I think I'll just, like, latch on to people like you and do what I can for them. That's my goal of life.
Are there any challenges that you would say you've faced in your life, like, specifically because of being a woman?
Yeah, all the time, probably. I think the main thing is mental, really. Just, like, feeling like there's a barrier there, because there really is a barrier there, but then being told that it's all merit-based, and being like, well, if that's how people see it, then that's how they're going to see me, and they're going to see me as just not having worked hard enough or been good enough for it. In reality, I just, like, constantly feel like I can't do something. And I think a lot of that is just watching other people who are great fail simply because they're a woman. And,
Hillary Clinton.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm so sad. I feel like I should think of a better example. I'm sure there's more specific things. think I just take a lot on through observing, and I prevent myself from being, like, put in the situations that I've seen so many of my family or friends be in. Like, people who were abused as kids, or people who in their adult relationships were, like, beat up, and so I see all of that, and I just, like, sit in my house all day then, because I'm, like, a little bit scared of the world. But, yeah.
That's intense, Molly.
Yeah. And I think the hard thing about the fact that not a lot of that specifically has happened to me is that I will often just think, it's all in your head. You're so fucking stupid. Like, you're making all of this up. Nothing's actually happened to you. Like, just stop being annoying.
Listen,
But
I think that shit is in our DNA, because our ancestors and women throughout time have experienced so much oppression and murder and beatings and being burned at the stake. And I do feel like for myself and other women, like, particularly when I have to say something, and very, like, I can count on it happening when I have to perform, my throat, like, locks up. And I think that that's because,
oh yeah,
as a woman throughout time, I have been burned. We've been burned at the stake for speaking up. And, you know, I'm in circles of other women who feel like they're, you know, they make it a regular practice to try to tune into their intuition and past lives and their spirits. And, like, they feel like that's very much, like, I've talked to other women who also feel like this is part of it. It's like, we have been persecuted for so long for speaking up that it's just natural that whether it's happened in this lifetime or not, it's gonna be something that's scary. So
yeah. And, like, body image is another way, because I've always, you know, struggled with my weight and stuff. And in high school, like, I'm not an idiot, you know. You can see when people think that they're getting one over on you and they're making fun of you and you don't know it. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but, like, I was a valedictorian and you're really stupid. I know that you're making fun of me. I'm just ignoring you. And it was even people that I was friends with, like, in gym classes. Boys can be so mean, and just always feeling like, I think that's why I'm so comfortable in the supporting actor space, is, like, I would always, like, set my friends up on relationships and just always think, you know, that that's not for me. That space isn't for me because I don't look like they want me to look like. So, yeah, and in a lot of ways, I think I just feel relegated to that, and I've become okay with it, I guess. Sad, but... Did you watch the Netflix movie with Jennifer Aniston that Dolly Parton did all the soundtrack for? What was that called? It was so good. Oh yeah, you don't watch movies that much. You're like a person who does things in her life. I watch a lot of movies. I'm a cinebuff. Is that a thing? Sounds like cinnabon. I don't think I said that word right. Dumplin'. That's what it's called. Dumplin'. That movie hit me straight into my heart, into my soul. It was so relatable for me. Like, there's a scene where she's, like, floating in a pool with her friend, and there's another kind of, she's a little bit overweight, and there's another overweight-ish classmate of theirs at the pool that's, like, talking to the boys, and, like, they make it appear that, like, maybe they're making fun of her, and they're floating in the pool, and she goes, well, at least I'm not that girl. She says her name, I don't remember, but she's like, at least I'm not, like, oblivious like that girl, you know? And that's how I felt, like, the whole time. Like, at least I'm aware of it. Like, I'm not some person that's, like, being taken advantage of because I don't see that it's happening. But also, I was still being taken advantage of, I guess. I don't know.
damn. I'm sorry. People are mean.
people are a lot meaner in a lot of other places
than
to a lot of other people. No, just all over the world. I, count my blessings.
Wow. I think that's a good attitude, but it also doesn't mean that it doesn't suck.
That's true. Man, I'm about to set up so many movie nights for us, though.
Really?
I just keep going, have you seen this? Have you seen this?
What did we decide we were going to watch? It's like old school. Well, House Moving Castle.
House Moving Castle.
There was something else.
There
old
was
school.
another thing.
Rocket Man.
Rocket Man. And there was another new one that neither of us had seen.
Mm-hmm.
I'll think of it.
Same.
I don't remember.
Oh, RBG movies! Both of them!
Yeah! RBG!
In the house! She's amazing.
She's so crazy.
So, what do you
Love
hope
her.
to see happen over the next year for our country and our planet and our species and like the world as we fucking know it?
For our planet. That's a big one.
Well,
that's really important to me.
As far as I'm concerned, whatever happens for our country is going to happen for our planet.
No, I mean like environmentally. That's a big one for me. Like, I really think that this country should take a stand like other countries have had. And I think it's important for our country to do it because a lot of people look to our country for some weird reason. And will follow our lead.
We're the greatest.
If we ban single-use plastics and if we just make legislation, I don't know. Sometimes I think you're missing something. It can't be this easy, but sometimes I'm like, maybe it is, and people are just really stupid or in the pockets of people, which is possibly true. That, like, if you legislate something, if you make regulations for an entire industry or the entire country, then it's not like some people will have an advantage over other people. Do you know what I mean? It's like level playing field. I don't understand why people are so against that.
Can you be more specific?
Like, not really. Just like if people will say, well, banning single-use plastics, that's too restrictive on industries that use that. But my thinking is, if you ban it for everyone, then no one can use it. How is anyone going to have a leg up on anyone else? I'm so confused. Like, that's just a regulation to help the environment. I'm so confused. I don't know. See, this is why I'm like, I'm clearly missing something, but I'm feeling like people are also missing something. So the environment is just a huge one for me. I feel like there's so many things that are already, like, there's so many technologies out there already that we're just not using, that because huge oil executives and coal executives and, like, just...
They got the power.
Yeah, it's so concerning.
That's why 10% of everything that I do goes to a local nonprofit, because I really feel like, this is the idealist in me, I really feel like there are organizations out there that are already doing the good work that would make everything okay for everybody. And they just need the funding, because the funding's in the hands of people who give no shits about what happens to other people or the planet, if other people have food or health care, or shelter. But yeah, there are great organizations doing stuff.
Yeah. Such a huge one for me, the environment. Obviously, a big goal is to vote a lot of people out of office. Matt Bevin is a huge one. Like, what is he even doing here?
Fucking
Isn't he from Pennsylvania? Like, get out of here.
Everything up.
And Donald Trump is another huge one. If those two went, I feel like an elephant would just step off my chest.
I think Mitch would need to leave as well, because he's the damn filibuster of the century. I mean,
obviously I agree, but just if those two left, I feel like those two are way easier to leave at this point. I need to set myself realistic expectations so that I don't crumble like I did the last time.
Oh my god.
So those are huge. I've just been trying to buy a lot less stuff too, which is hard. It's way harder than you would think. If you just plan on buying only food and like things that are absolutely necessary, like if I'm going home to Ohio to help with my mom's house, I have to buy gas, you know. But it is way harder than you would think. Way, way harder. I'm trying very hard to not shop online. It's so hard. You have no idea. Because, like, that can be therapy. When you have a lot of, like, anxiety and stuff, you can just be like, click, endorphins, click.
I had some fun on the Elizabeth Warren website last night. I bought this t-shirt that says, "Arrogant, rude women make history."
Nice. Is that a quote from someone? Probably.
I don't know. It's probably an Elizabeth Warren quote, if I were to guess.
She's the subject of the "Nevertheless She Persisted," right?
It's
I
terrible,
think
but
so.
I don't know, but I don't know.
And I think McConnell said it. And it's so funny that he thought that he was being so negative about her. And nevertheless, she persisted to just like, she just kept talking. Oh my gosh, can you guys believe it? And that's like become an anthem for so many people.
I wrote a little cheerleading bit about Mitch once, and I'm probably not the only person who ever came out with it, but it goes, "Ditch Mitch, he's a bitch, ditch Mitch, he's a bitch." He's a bitch.
Seriously though. He's so stupid.
He's real dumb. I don't know. Well, you want to go get some ice cream?
Yeah!
Speaking about not buying things, you shouldn't hang out with me.
No! That's food! It's included in the good stuff.
Yeah,
and it's not like I don't slip up every once in a while.
You need it. Thanks for talking with me.
Girl, of course. I hope you got something.
That was such a fun interview with Molly. And now it's time for the feminist pro tip of the week. Embrace your feminism. Last week we embraced our inner witch, and now we're embracing our inner feminist. It's not a dirty F word. As Susan B. Anthony so famously and brilliantly said, "Men, their rights and nothing more. Women, their rights and nothing less." And as the brilliant Maya Angelou said, "I'm a feminist. I've been a female a long time now. It'd be stupid not to be on my own side." Maya Angelou also said, "A woman in harmony with her spirit is like a river flowing. She goes where she will without pretense and arrives at her destination, prepared to be herself and only herself." And the question of the week that I pose to you is, how have you experienced grief? And what have you done to recover? You can write me info@rainbowstarmusic.com and share your stories. And there will be extra goodies in the show notes today. If you want to access them directly, you'll go to rainbowstarmusic.com/episode 5. Otherwise, you can always find the show notes at rainbowstarmusic.com/podcast. You can listen to the podcast on any of your favorite platforms, including Spotify and YouTube. Just search Musings from the Rainbow Sparkle Palace. You can find us on Insta @Palace Podcast. This episode was written, edited, and produced by me, Rainbow Star, and the background music is also written by me. New episodes release every Wednesday, so keep coming back. You're welcome to subscribe, rate, review, and share, and let others know that feminist voices are well worth hearing. Stay fierce, stay sparkly.
I tried to warn my family, didn't nobody come. And I tried to find my wrecking ball, didn't nobody come. And on the day I was born, they said we we got a sick one. And my best friend's ex, he's known me all my life. Never known no one look so happy when they're dying inside. Oh, my best friend's ex, known me all my life. Never known no one look so happy when they're dying inside. And I was looking for a way out with you. I was looking for a way out with you. I was looking for a way out. I was looking for a way out with you. I was looking for a way